Hey guys, today I'm down in Southern California because I've been able to get hands-on with the 2025 Tahoe and the 2025 Suburban. These are the best-selling full-size SUVs in America, and for 2025 they received some pretty big updates. Not only do we get a new look on the outside, we get almost an entirely new dashboard with the latest GM technology, big infotainment screens standard, and more safety technology in every model. Since I don't have too much time with the new Tahoe or the new Suburban, let's just grab the camera and take a look together here. You'll notice we get an entirely new front end design. The sheet metal for 2025 on the Tahoe and Suburban hasn't really changed, but we do get a new look front and rear thanks to new bumpers and new headlights. Everything here is slimmer than in the past to give it more of an aggressive, sleek look. We also get a lot of sort of this piano black trim around the front end design. Now, this particular Tahoe is the Z71 off-road trim, so of course we get red recovery hooks down there at the bottom and functional skid plates right there underneath the vehicle as well. Big change for 2025 is that you can now combine the Z71 with the excellent 3-liter turbo diesel engine under the hood, but that's not the turbo diesel you might be familiar with. This is actually the second generation of that 3-liter turbo diesel that bumps power to over 300 horsepower and torque to nearly 500 pound-feet. It's basically the same one we see in the Silverado and the Sierra as well. This Z71 has some pretty big wheels on it for an off-road vehicle. We have 20-inch wheels here, but these are not exactly low-profile tires. They're 60 series Wrangler all-terrains. You can see that we have the blacked-out Tahoe logo there, and really blacked-out trim is the name of the game for the Z71. We get the steps down there at the bottom, and then moving right here to the back, you'll see the new taillight design and the new hatch design in the rear as well. The taillights are going to be pretty consistent across the lineup with a few tweaks as far as the general look goes. So in the Z71 and most trims, we're going to get red elements even when the lights are off. But if we take a look at the very top end trim, then they're going to be more of a translucent design. You can see on the back that we have this big black bar that runs from one taillight over there to the other. That really helps this maintain that really wide look that a lot of people love about the Tahoe and Suburban. These are big SUVs and people want people to know that they're driving something big. At the bottom of the bumper, we have quad exhaust tips in this model, round because this is the Z71. Things do change a little bit back here based on the trim you're looking at. You can see that we have matte black plastic down here, some shiny black right there, the body colored sections, and then the release for the powered hatch right here. Now, as before, the Tahoe has a single piece tailgate that lifts up there, or hatch I should say, and lots of cargo room behind. As always, the big difference between the Tahoe and the Suburban right next to it is the size of the cargo area in the back. So definitely a big improvement in cargo capacity if we take a look at this Suburban. Now, in the Suburban, if we take a look at the taillight modules, these have some changes versus that other model, and these are going to be found on the top end Tahoe as well. So instead of the red lenses all the time, not only do we have animations, but when the vehicle is off, they have more of a white frosted look to them. And then we get these really slim 3 LED backup lights back there below. It really is an attractive and very large, chunky look, I would actually say. Now, this is the high country version of the Suburban, so we'll get the same sort of trim in the Tahoe in high country, and that gives us these quad square exhaust tips right down there at the bottom. There are also some additional changes around the vehicle, like we have absolutely enormous wheels on this model. These are 24-inch wheels and tires. These are 285 40R24s, so that is a really big wheel and a really big meaty tire. They've changed the power running boards in this model. They've given it really an interesting theme with an LED light strip running right there across the bottom to help illuminate the entire side of the vehicle. As you can see, that light strip just turned on. It's a little bit difficult to see on camera, but it's basically just a big lightsaber style light bar integrated into that running board. Tahoe and Suburban are available in the same 6 trims as before, and there are going to be 3 different front end looks. We don't have all of them here today, but this is the high country model. So we get the same sort of LED setup over here, very angry, but they're animated in this model rather than the static accents that we found in the other trims. The front end grille changes a bit too. You can see that we have more individual elements here with sort of a subtle satin chrome there, flanked by the black bits in front. Definitely a different design than we found in the Z71. Chevy says that the Z71 grille was designed not just to look aggressive, but also to be a little bit easier to clean than some of the other grills, since people might be taking them a bit further off-road. Down at the bottom of the bumper, you can see some changes down there as well. We get really low-placed fog lights, active grille shutters right there in the center section. Placed low on the front bumper, we have LED fog lights, another satin chrome strip running across there, and then depending on the trim you're looking at, these will be used for cooling, but in this particular model they are just blanked off. Under the hood, things will still start out with the familiar 5.3-liter V8. There's also an optional 6.2-liter V8, which is what this model has under its hood. Both are mated to a standard 10-speed automatic transmission, but I think the big news under the hood is the redesigned 3-liter turbocharged engine. If you want to know more about that, be sure and check out our Sierra and Silverado videos, because we've already driven the combination of that 3-liter and, of course, the 10-speed automatic as well. Basically, same drivetrain, now transplanted into this. Big change also is that the Z71, which was not available with the 3-liter diesel, can now have that 3-liter diesel because they've redesigned the front bumper and the appropriate cooling for that engine to integrate it with the Z71 package. Since the biggest changes have happened inside, let's take a dive into there now. This is the High Country trim, which is definitely the most luxurious entry in this segment now. Keep in mind, of course, that the top-end Grand Wagoneer would be competing with the Escalade, so it is in a slightly different category. The general seat design remains the same, although the upholstery has changed, but you aren't going to notice that until after you have noticed the really dynamic new dashboard design. Since this is the High Country trim, we have a big heads-up display module there. It seems a bit more prominent than before because the entire dashboard has been lowered to really give this the visual sense of being a bigger vehicle inside, being a roomier vehicle inside, and also give people that are a little bit shorter a better view over the dashboard as well. Since this is the High Country trim, we have lots and lots of stitched materials, like the entire upper section of the dashboard, perforated stitched insert right there, and lots of real wood trim as well. I really like the look of this dashboard. I actually have to say GM has been knocking it out of the park with the new Traverse, the new Acadia, and then of course now the new Tahoe. And this is really going to give you an idea of what to expect in the Yukon when we finally get that model. Super Cruise is going to be more available than before, so it's basically going to be the 4 top-end trims, and with that comes this new steering wheel. You'll also notice we get a shifter right there on the column rather than the pull button style shifter that we had before. But the big news is, of course, this enormous touchscreen infotainment system that is going to be absolutely standard in every trim right there in the middle of the dashboard. We'll take a look at that in the Z71 in just a second. Also standard is going to be this almost 12-inch LCD instrument cluster over there on the driver's side. You can see that the wood curves around the dashboard in a really intriguing fashion, and another cool touch, the screen actually is cut out and shaped just like that bezel. So it's not a rectangular screen jammed in a rounded bezel, it's actually a rounded screen in there. All of the climate controls have also been redesigned, so you can see the climate control knobs down there and all of that. That's all new, but the bulk of this center console remains the same as before. Between the front seats, Chevy still gives us this very innovative powered center console, so this slides forward and backward to get it closer to or farther away from the driver and front passengers. That gets those rear cup holders and controls not only a little bit closer to the second row seats, but it also gives the driver and the front passenger access to a ton of additional storage space here. In front of that, we have 2 big cup holders, wireless charging mat, USB inputs, and lots of storage, but we also have plenty of shiny black plastic right there in the middle of everything. So if you don't like shiny black plastic, certainly keep that in mind. If I put this light down for just a second, you can see that we have this extra storage tray there, so lots and lots of storage going on here and lots of ways to configure it. And then we still have lots of storage as well underneath that armrest. You can see the 2 wireless headphones in there for the rear seat passengers, and then the armrest also slides forward and backward, so you can have this console closer to those rear passengers but not give up the armrest for the driver and front passenger. That's also going to kind of cover up some of that whatever you have stored in that storage area there, and then it's going to give you yet another little storage nook right behind it for those second row passengers. Here's a view from behind so you can see just how close those controls actually get to the second row passengers. That's really handy because in this captain's chair model, we don't have anything going on between those seats. So you'd have to either use those 2 cup holders there, or you'd have to use the bottle holders that are in the rear doors. Basically, the rear door design hasn't changed too much. We get wood trim, as you can see right there on the upper section of the door in the back. Pretty easy access to the third row, and of course, as before, the third row really is the entire reason to get any of these full-size SUVs. Just check out that massive amount of headroom back there in the third row. You can see we have air vents up there in the third row, lots of cutouts for additional headroom. And this is one of the few vehicles where if you get the extended wheelbase version, not only do we get extra cargo capacity, but they actually move that third row rearward. The lighting is a little bit tricky in here, but let's check out this big LCD infotainment system in the Z71 trim. You'll notice we have different trim on the dashboard. This is not real wood, this is an imitation wood veneer, but it actually looks pretty decent. Again, you can see that the screen is not square. They actually notch it right down there, and then it's got kind of a rounded corner up top. This borrows a lot of the trailering and other feature set from the Silverado and the Sierra, which is definitely very handy. So if we go over here to trailering, you can import your trailer profile. That is going to allow the system to not only do things like blind spot monitoring for your trailer, also the invisible trailer functionality, all those various different camera views, but also in the 360-degree mode where you're showing tire lines and tire travel paths, it will now actually show you that for the trailer tires, which is a really cool touch. So you can see what your trailer might be running over. The extra trailering cameras and just camera scenes and camera views generally are something that GM has done a really great job in all their products. Now, over here on the additional controls, you notice we don't have headlight controls. That's been somewhat controversial. That's because GM is actually giving us physical headlight controls in this model. You can see that we have touch controls for the climate control system as well as those physical controls below. So if you're a fan of physical controls, don't worry, they are still here in this model, as is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. GM has not excised those from these models just yet. Over on the instrument cluster, you can see this is running the latest version of GM software. It's also going to be pretty similar to what we've seen in some of their other cars. Sorry for the lighting in here in the studio. It's been really challenging, so trying to block it out so that we don't get lens flare has been pretty tricky. As we see in other GM vehicles with a full screen LCD instrument cluster, there are going to be a few different screens and styles available depending on the drive mode. You should be able to select them yourself as well. If you don't get the heads-up display, here's what the dashboard looks like just above that instrument cluster. You can see that we get the LED module that reflects on the dashboard if you're about to hit something. That's that sort of collision warning system there. The upper section of the dashboard is an injection molded piece. It's then been made to look sort of like a stitched material, but then we do get an actual soft touch separate piece of material just in front. And here's a better look at that imitation wood trim on the dashboard. I really like the look of the wood trim in here. Let me know what you think about that. Of course, we still get those physical controls as I mentioned before, and lots of black plastic there. Now, the steering wheel itself, this is what it's going to look like if you don't get Super Cruise. It has a really nice thick rim to it. It's a very attractive design, I have to say. Over here on this side, you can see we get tiny paddles on the back of the steering wheel. We do get shift paddles, but we still have the controls for the audio system on the back of the steering wheel. So volume up, down over there, track forward, backward on the other side. Now, if you're a fan of buttons, don't worry, there are tons to the left of the steering wheel. This is where we find the trailer brake controller, the buttons for the 360-degree camera system, the headlights, the four-wheel drive system, and of course the electric parking brake as well. And in case you're wondering, there's a better look at the shifter. It's basically the same shifter that we're finding in a lot of General Motors' new electric vehicles. Definitely takes up a lot less room in the center console or in the dashboard. I really like the design. Let me know what you think about that. Going back to a column shifter honestly makes a great deal of sense to me, at least. As often happens at events like this, I don't have pricing information for the new Tahoe or the new Suburban just yet. Expect that a little bit closer to the on-sale date. And keep in mind, these are 2025 models, not 2024s. But if you're looking for one of the biggest and roomiest three-row SUVs in America, you should definitely put these two on your shopping list, especially if you want more third-row headroom and legroom and more cargo capacity in your big SUV. This is one of the few vehicles that actually can carry 6 adults and 6 adults worth of luggage, not just for a very quick weekend away, but for a much longer getaway. And then of course you could combine that with the off-road capability offered in the Z71 trim and the diesel engine for one of those really long distance adventures. Let me know what you think about that. Hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen, and of course stay tuned for a drive review just as soon as I can get my hands on one of these. Of course, expect the 2025 model year to be the most expensive model year ever for the Suburban and the Tahoe. See all of you later.